In our last video, we talked about what it is we wanted to do with this app, and we also talked about screen one, which is accessed by clicking on this little header here, this gray bar. We talked about some of the properties and what those do. So now let's get started adding the components for our app. First thing we're going to add is an image. And I have some preloaded images on here already, and we'll use the event app header. And we'll plug that in, and we'll make the width fill parent. And as always, you can download these images right from the online course, and you can upload them yourself to your app when you start creating this. Okay, so the next thing we're going to put in here is the old familiar table arrangement. We're going to drag that underneath our header. And what we're looking to do with this app is have 4 buttons here with 3 spacers in between those buttons. So what I'm going to do here is change the columns to 1 because we're going to go all the way across the screen. And then we need 7 rows in which to put our buttons and spacers. So I'll make the width fill parent on this so it goes all the way across the screen. And now we're kind of used to putting in a button right here. But what we're doing right now is we're creating a button for a list of objects. In the first button, we're going to create a list of websites. And for that, we need what's called the ListPicker element. So we'll put that in there. And that functions essentially as a button, but it does allow us to create a list of objects instead of just having that button be pressed and do one thing. All right, so it's time for our first spacer. So we'll grab a horizontal arrangement and put it in here. We're going to make that width fill parent. And I've already set this up to see what's going to work best. And I found that if we change the height to 7 pixels, we'll actually have enough room for our 4 buttons here. And the spacing will look nice and clean. So for our list picker, let's go back and rename that. Since we're going to have a list of websites that we're linking out to, I'm going to call this upcoming events. So you can think of it as somebody who clicks on this button in their app will come up with a list of upcoming events, and then they'll be able to choose that event and get some more information on it. All right, so we're going to make next a list of Google Maps for the event locations. So again, we're going to grab another list picker, and we're going to rename that event locations. And I should also mention here that when we're done making our app functional, we're going to talk more about adding some images over the top of these buttons so that you can add things like a nice shiny button like you'd see on a website. So it'll look quite a bit better than just these standard gray buttons. And we'll change the font sizes and the font colors to make the text on those buttons more visible. But for now, we're just going to stick with the standard gray buttons. Okay, so up next we need one more spacer, so let's pull in another horizontal arrangement. We're going to fill the parent for the width, and for the height, we're going to make it 7 pixels again. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is add a button, which when pressed will take us to a page of text. So we'll be learning how to write a page of text here in this one as well. And we'll call this About Us. So you could see that as when somebody clicks on that button, they'll just get a page of text explaining what this event company does or what these events are all about. So we need one more spacer. We'll pull in another horizontal arrangement, and we'll do the same thing we did on the last 2. We'll make this 7 pixels. Great. So now we just need our last button. And what this button is going to do is take us to an entirely new screen and display a QR code. And for those unfamiliar with QR codes, we'll do a little bit of a primer here. A QR code is pretty similar to the horizontal barcodes that you're used to on the back of any product packaging, but they're actually a little bit more complex and they can hold a lot more information. They're square in shape, and the nice thing about QR codes is you can create your own QR codes very easily, and we'll talk about how to do that later on in the course. And you can link to things like specific website or a web page. You can link out to geographical coordinates, or you can link to a specific bit of text. If you look up here in the package for phone drop-down box, you can actually show the barcode. It'll take a minute or 2 to download, but when that pops up, you'll actually get a barcode for this specific app. So it's not something that you can put on the Android market and allow people to download your app, or put on a website and have people download your app. What the barcode from App Inventor allows you to do is when you change your phone settings to allow non-market apps, and again, we'll talk about that later, when those settings are correct in your phone, you can actually scan this QR code with a QR code reader, and it will install this app. So when you're sharing apps with other students in the course, you can certainly add the barcode from this package for phone area and allow other students to download your app. Okay, so now that we have talked about QR codes and what they are and what they can do for you, let's actually add our QR code down in the bottom area here. And remember, we're going to have the QR code show up on a brand new screen. So I'm going to make a new screen arrangement here. And I'm just going to use a horizontal screen arrangement. And then I'm going to grab an image component and drag that right into the horizontal arrangement. So let's go to our horizontal arrangement, and we're going to fill the parent with the width and with the height. Now, the reason you would do this is because when you go to a new screen, you want the QR code to fill the screen and be as big as possible. And since we're not going to have any of these buttons on our second screen or our QR code screen, we're going to have all this room down here to display our QR code. Now that we're thinking about that, let's go ahead and change the names of our table arrangements, and we'll change them to screen names so that when we're ready to create the blocks in the blocks editor that will allow us to create multiple screens, we'll be ready to go. So we'll call this the, let's see, we're on the first one here, so we'll call this the home screen. And if we go down to our little QR code arrangement, we'll call that QR code screen, just so we know what we're talking about in the blocks editor. Okay, so we have not added our QR code image yet, so let's click on our image, and we'll go up to picture here, and we'll choose the events QR code. We'll plug that in there, and then we're going to make this as big as possible, so we'll fill the parent with both height and width, and we've got all our visible components set now. And for those of you who perhaps haven't seen a QR code, this is essentially what they look like. They're all a little bit different, but they all look pretty similar to that. Okay, so we're going to add a couple of activity starters here, and we're going to add 1 and 2. So the first activity starter is going to be for our list of upcoming events or links out to a list of websites. And the second activity starter is going to help us when we create our list of Google Maps. Now I'm going to finish this up by renaming all of my buttons here so I know what's what. And I'm going to put an image of this in the course so that you can go back and look at it and name your buttons the same as I've named it. So when we get to the blocks editor, you won't have any confusion if you name your buttons different things. So just remember to review that, and when we come back, we'll talk about creating a list of websites using the ListPicker.